I so I just went ahead and started a recording of this, which I will provide to the ANC commissioners and to Andre and Nicole for circulation to members of the immediate community. So we will have the recording if there are technical difficulties along the way as well. Okay, Erwin, I'll let you take it away, and I'm here to be helpful if I can be.
All right, great. Well, thanks for the introduction, Dan. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Erwin Andrus with Grove Slate Associates. We are local transportation consultants that have worked on numerous development projects throughout the district. And we're very well versed with how DDOT operates and the way that they anticipate reviewing some of our documents that we've prepared to this point. So Will, next slide. I want to try and keep our presentation as concise as possible. This is just a quick project location. I believe everybody on the phone and online knows where the site is and what the boundaries are. In terms of the project, this is the latest site plan as well as the latest development plan, where we're looking at approximately 683 units, 300 bike spaces, 18,000 square feet of retail/PDR space, and a TDM plan that includes a new capital bike share station that we're committed to provide. Next slide. When we look at the impacts of a project like this, typically what we do is we meet with DDOT and identify the parameters with which we do our study. And as part of that scoping process, which is a formal process that has guidelines, we've identified 11 intersections that we studied. And based on the maximum development plan, what we've done is we've identified that during the peak hour, which is the peak hour in the morning during the rush hour and the peak hour in the afternoon during rush hour, that the project overall will generate 112 trips in the morning and 168 trips in the afternoon. What that means is that there's a portion of those trips, of those 112, are either inbound or outbound. So the total of inbound and outbound are 112 in the morning, and the total of inbound and outbound in the afternoon is 168 during the peak hour. And this is an industry standard, and it's a district standard with which we try to identify the impacts related to the project. Next slide.
Erwin, what are the peak hours? What does that mean? What are those hours?
So it's the peak. It's the peak hour between 6 and 9 in the morning, and it's essentially the peak system hour between 6 and 9. So you look at all of the intersections and the way they operate between 6 and 9 a.m. And we pick the hour that's most consistently the highest within that hour. And then we do the same thing in the afternoon between 4 and 7. And Will, can you look for that, and so we can answer Andre's question as we move forward?
So the 168 in the PM, that's spread over between 4 and 7.
No. That's spread over an hour between 4 and 7. The highest hour between.
Oh, so it's 168 per hour. Gotcha.
No, 168 in the highest hour. So 168, that is over 60 minutes between the highest traffic volume in the neighborhood between 4 and 7.
Okay.
Erwin, John also has his hand up.
Yeah, yes. I just had another question on this. So my reading of the CTR, it seemed like the way you generated this number was you measured one afternoon on a Wednesday, one day in a Wednesday in November, and then did a sort of series of mathematical formulas. You kind of extrapolated out from that. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. So the chart that you see on the left does not have any correlation to where the site is located. Well, it does and it doesn't. So it's the projections that you see on the left, the 112 and 168, are based on the type of use it is and are based on where it's located in the district.
Oh, so those are the new trips.
Yes, those are the new trips.
Okay, so then you add that to the existing traffic.
Yes.
And
Okay.
to your point, John, the existing traffic counts, typically we collect them between Tuesday and Thursday on a typical weekday. And so in that respect, I guess that answers your question about, the actual collection of the traffic.
So that's standard just to do like one day. I just wondered because it seemed like you could get a day that's slow, or I remember I think that might have been during a pandemic surge, things like that. Maybe we can come back to it later. I don't want to belabor it, but I was just a little surprised you only pick one day to do your measurements, and then it's all sort of extrapolation from that.
So typically for the DDOT studies, you pick a typical weekday, and there is an understanding from DDOT where that it's in some cases, it might be, that it's an average day. So maybe on any given day, it might be a little higher or it might be a little lower. And so that's why they don't like us taking traffic counts on a Monday and Friday, because there's more variability on days like that. Next slide. And then this essentially goes through what our findings are. So as I mentioned before, we were required to study 11 intersections. 3 of the intersections have been identified as intersections that have been impacted. 2 intersections along Rhode Island, which are Rhode Island and 10th and Rhode Island and Rhode Island and Reed Street, currently operate above what's commonly known as acceptable levels of service. There's somebody, Michael Tran, has raised his hand.
Oh, hey, sorry, I joined late and you might have covered this. Just on the measurement piece, I know I had told a few of the other neighbors, and I think Raw as well, that one of the measurements, it was right in front of my house on Evarts and Reed Street, and Reed Street was blocked off that day. So I just want to make sure, did you guys do it again? That measurement
So if I could answer that. So we we looked back at the data and the video as well, and there was no interruptions that we saw on Reed Street traffic during the peak periods. So maybe that happened in the middle of the day, because we study the peak morning and the peak evening commuter periods. And the video showed nothing closed.
Let me make
on Reed Street itself. Okay,
yeah.
Let me make 2 comments. So DDOT pushes you when you're going to close lanes to do that, apparently, I think between 9 and 3. So they push you not to make closures during the peak periods. But also, were the cameras out for more than one day, and then we collected one day, or the cameras were out for one day?
Yeah.
So
just one day, yeah, because I remember.
Oh, go on, Mike.
Okay.
Because go ahead.
No, keep going. Keep explaining, because I mean, I remember just what happened, and so maybe I can give my input.
Yeah. No, I think you had mentioned this a couple months ago, and so once we heard that, we were concerned about that as well. So we went back and watched all of the video at that intersection on Reed Street for the day, not for the day, but during the peak periods, because that's what we record. And there weren't any closures during that window, so it wouldn't have affected our data that we study.
I see. So you captured it on, like, basically from Rhode Island and Reed as well during because I think the closure
at each
was
intersection.
There. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't really exactly remember when they closed it, but if it's a peak period, then, and that's from till 9 o'clock or 9 a.m.
It's like 6:30 to 9 to 9:30. So it's that 3-hour window in the morning. And as Erwin said, DDOT typically directs that those closures happen outside of the commuter rush.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
So based on our study, we've identified 3 impacted intersections associated with the development project. 2 of them, the intersections of Rhode Island Avenue and Reed Street, and the intersection of Rhode Island and 10th. As you are probably familiar, those intersections currently operate above capacity where there are queues, primarily because of the amount of traffic on Rhode Island Avenue. And so based on our coordination, DDOT, as their, what they do is on a semi-regular basis, they look at reprogramming certain corridors, and Rhode Island Avenue is one of them. So within that corridor along Rhode Island Avenue, especially with all the construction going on, they are planning to retime those signals so that they are optimized. So in terms of the impacts associated with our project, the signal time associated with those would be mitigated. Next slide.
And what was did they provide a time frame on that? When it's happening?
Well,
They did not give us a time frame, but when we requested the signal timings, they gave us a forewarning that, hey, be aware these are going to change soon. So that was the extent of what we got, but it is currently planned in the near term. So it'll happen before the development comes.
And we can check with them when we meet with them on the 15th, Andre, so we can get more information, more specificity on that. And then go to the next slide, Will. So these next slides go into a little bit of detail related to Rhode Island Avenue and Reed Street. And we could provide this table, and actually this whole PowerPoint after. And essentially what we've identified is that in the existing condition, there are some approaches that operate at fairly high levels of service. And with our traffic, those get increased, but with the proposed signal timing adjustments, those adjustments are mitigated. Similarly, at the intersection, next slide, of Rhode Island Avenue and 10th, we have a similar condition where there are some delays in the morning. And then with additional traffic, both background traffic and our traffic, those are increased. And with proposed signal timing adjustments, those are mitigated down to better than existing conditions. The intersection that is of concern is the primary intersection of 10th and Franklin. What we've been identified at this intersection is that this intersection operates above capacity of existing conditions. And because of some of the changes that we're making, there are two impacts that add to the intersection of 10th and Franklin. The first impact is that what currently happens is happening today, and this is based on kind of our early community meetings, is that there's a significant cut-through issue for that many of the residents on the call today experienced in the alley that runs from Evarts to Franklin. So based on our data collection, it turns out that in the existing condition, there are a couple hundred vehicles a day that actually cut through that intersection, head north on the alley, and turn left. Because we are creating a plan that will no longer allow for those people to cut through the alley and turn left, in order to, what will happen is that those vehicles will no longer go up the alley. Those vehicles will now head towards head towards 10th Street to go up and turn left. And in the mornings, which this condition at 10th and Franklin is actually greatest in the morning, is that 43 cars that are currently using that alley are no longer going to be using that alley. They're going to be using 10th Street to head north and turn left. In that same time period, we're going to be adding traffic to that intersection of Franklin and 10th of 11 cars that'll be turning left and 15 heading through. So the additional impact of both the rerouting of the traffic and our project traffic is a situation that increases the delays at this intersection. So it's important to note that even though we are adding traffic at this intersection, the biggest contribution is the fact that we're eliminating the cut-through traffic in the alley. And so because of that, we've looked at several ways to mitigate that intersection. So in the potential to mitigate the impact at 10th and Franklin, we have several options. The first is retiming that intersection. The second is potentially adding a left turn lane on the northbound side of 10th Street. And in those instances, we are able to reduce the impacts of both the cut-through traffic as well as our traffic. However, I think what is more important is that, as Dan had kind of laid out at the beginning of this call, we took another look at the potential for a traffic signal at Reed and Franklin, which would also mitigate this intersection.
So, Erwin, can we, before we move on, just because I know this intersection is so, so let's just make sure everybody understands the chart. So, let's make sure I understand the chart. So first off, one thing that I think you said to me, which was helpful, is really the issues in this immediate neighborhood are in the AM peak hour. As a general matter, there just aren't material issues in the PM peak hour, correct?
That's correct.
And then, so in this intersection, really what we're looking at is the northbound 10th Street traffic. So it's the line that says northbound. As you go across, you're starting with, so it's 140 seconds of delay today, right? And then it's 155 seconds just with additional development in the neighborhood. And then what is the next column? What's the 276 seconds?
Yeah, Dan, if I could just give a brief breakdown of the table. So if you look at the top of the table where we have existing, background, and future, existing is as it sounds, that's today. Background is with pipeline development and growth, and then total future is with the Reed Street development added. The rows under that is the road network in place. So we looked at the background condition, both with and without the traffic calming, just so that's why there's two columns there. So that the second background part is with the rerouting, but not yet with the Reed trips for the redevelopment.
Got it. And so the 340 is with the new development?
Yes, and the rerouting, yeah, and everything.
And the 276 is, say that again?
Just with the rerouting, but not with the Reed Street traffic for your development.
Got it. So the 338 is our development, and then the 180 is just signal timing, or that's
Correct.
Just the left turn lane? Just signal timing.
Just the signal timing. So reallocating the green time to make more sense.
So just with signal timing, we certainly mitigate whatever impact there is from our development, and we get most of the way back through the rerouting of the alley traffic and the background condition as well. And then the last column is if you add a new northbound left turn lane. And everybody in the community should note, we have not proposed this to DDOT. It's obviously it's in the CTR, but we haven't suggested this is the correct mitigation. That would knock out, I think it's 4 or 5 parking spaces on the west side of 10th Street. But you would actually end up with northbound traffic that has, even with the new development, the rerouting of the alley traffic, you'd have less delay than the existing condition actually. Did I misstate that?
No,
That's correct.
Now, obviously, that parking, and so I see one neighbor who's speaking on that. We know that's controversial. We just view that as a neighborhood decision. 10th Street North would work better with a left turn lane, but we're not going to push for that given the loss of parking unless there seems to be neighborhood consensus that is the right idea. So if we feel that there's that consensus, then I think we're happy to push that. And that left turn lane. So let's stop here just because I know that this intersection is incredibly important. It may be 50% of what we speak about tonight. And I just want to make sure everybody understands the chart. If you have questions, it looks like we have some hands up. Commissioner Costello, please unmute.
Yeah, hey Dan, and hi everyone, both residents, commissioners, and Hanover team. So on the parking conversation, just a suggestion I wanted to throw out there. If you know, it sounds like the left turn lane would make things run a little bit more smoothly. I understand residents' concerns about losing parking. I wonder if, since Hanover has a lot of parking proposed to be included in its development, if you could offer parking passes to residents on 10th Street in case they need to use it.
Yeah, I think we would vote for no left turn lane before we did that. Opening the garage to residents, people who live there in the future, just the potential for legal issues. I think that would probably not be something that we would offer. I do believe that there are people who park in the alleys back there successfully, and so maybe that's helpful for some. But I don't think that we would offer parking in the garage. So I did not know that alley parking was illegal. I thought that a lot of folks had parking spaces off their alleys. Maybe some use them as backyards, but for some there's parking. But I didn't know alley parking was
Dan,
illegal.
sorry, I'll clarify my point there. Parking in the alley itself is illegal, and there's been an uptick in that, partly because people can't park on the street. You can park on your property as long as you have, access to that. But just to emphasize, parking in the alley is illegal, so we would not want to encourage any of that. It blocks a lot of the parking back there. So.
No, agreed. Yeah, and understood, and totally fair point. I see that there are a couple of questions. Let's just stop and hit a couple of these. So I think so the right in, right out on the alley mouth would be enforced with signage and the flexible bollard posts on the rail system. I know that that isn't perfect. We did study putting concrete dividers there, and there wasn't space. So it's the best of the available options, and hopefully deters almost all attempts to turn left out or left in. School drop off is definitely tough. Without a pull off for school drop off, I mean, I don't think there is any way to completely fix 10th Street during school drop off and pickup. John, AM is I can't remember the exact numbers. It may be twice as bad as PM or something like that. So it's not to say that there's no PM traffic. It's just to say we were focused on the biggest problems and we wanted to present the biggest problems. All of the PM counts are in the study, and that's the worst of the PM hours. And everybody should feel free to look at those. The AM numbers are worse. So you can see on this slide, the AM peak hour at 10th Street and Franklin northbound is 270. The PM peak hour northbound at Franklin is 156. So it's not to say that there isn't traffic in the PM. It's just to say we wanted to focus on the worst case scenarios. Will, did we study
just to clarify this, so this slide, we're only showing the AM because this intersection, the delays were acceptable in the PM.
At the top,
so
at the top. Look at the top half of the slide. You've got PM on
for the
right.
numbers.
Yeah, it does for the numbers. That's what I was
for the
talking
numbers.
about.
Yeah. For the delay down here,
270. So is it correct to say it's 270 cars northbound in the AM peak hour 150 northbound in the PM peak hour.
Correct.
So
So whatever,
just,
yeah, so whatever solutions we come up with for the AM would by default cover the PM condition as well.
Will, did we study the 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. hour?
So we do not, since this is a residential development, we study from 4 to 7, and we do recognize that, school traffic would be the heaviest during the sort of the 2 to 4 hour block, but residential for trip generation drops off pretty significantly when you get earlier than 4, because everybody is nobody's coming home from work yet. So the peak traffic generated by the residential development just really isn't there to layer on top of the school traffic. So that's why we don't look at that on a purely residential development. If we were studying another school or some type of campus, we would look at those school peak hours, but you just don't for a purely residential development.
A couple of other comments. Signal timing can take into account how pedestrian signals work. If there were, a dedicated left turn lane, it is true. I mean, people crossing the crosswalk would delay it. But if you have it 4-car length, say, the benefit of the short left turn lane is the first 4 cars that want to go left, even if there's somebody crossing the crosswalk, pull out of the way of the cars behind them, and then you've got the through traffic and the right turns happening. So, I mean, there is material benefit if the community desires that. Yes. So I think, Colleen, just on the 3 to 4 p.m., ultimately not super affected by our development. It doesn't mean that there, aren't issues there. If you have a left turn lane, that will help. Making Reed Street a through street, is going to be beneficial as well, even in hours where the residential development isn't really burdening the system. But what's happening before 4, I guess the point is just, it's not really affected by our development in a material way. As more people start returning to the office. So Will, how?
Yeah, so Dan, to answer that question, our trip generation projections are based on typical office, essentially what would, this is assuming that we return to pre-COVID conditions. And so in that respect, maybe this might be a little overstated because, the new normal is a lot more people are going to be working from home permanently. But in this case, we've taken a conservative approach in that the projections related to the residential traffic is associated with the impact of the development is associated with typical residential conditions and not post-COVID conditions.
But when you guys collected the data back in November, traffic was not back full to pre-pandemic levels, right? So there is possibility that it was under or counted.
Well, potentially, but there's also the situation where DDOT tracks this, and they've essentially almost agreed that the new normal or the new normal related to traffic conditions in the district is one where there is a future of not everybody going to work. So in response, Andre, yes, the background traffic might essentially be maybe a little bit understated, but our impacts associated with our development might be a little overstated. So and again, when we're looking at traffic, there is some variability with respect to what we do as traffic engineers. And so what we try to do is identify, what the impacts are and what are the big mitigation measures that can help address that. And going through this, we've identified signal timing at this intersection. We've identified the potential for a new northbound left turn. I think what's important is actually the next slide that comes after this, which we can get to after we answer some of the questions, some of the other questions that are here.
Andre, your hand is still up. Did you have another question?
Yes. What I wanted to ask is, so in my mind, this slide is basically screaming justification for the traffic light at Reed and Franklin, right? So if you look at rerouting existing traffic, we're adding 43 trips, pushing 43 trips towards 10th Street to now be turning left. So, and if we have that, bypass, immediate shortcut, right, at Reed and Franklin, then just by virtue of that, 43 trips are eliminated from being added to.
Yeah. So let me just comment on this. This slide assumes that we can't get a traffic light, but if we got a traffic light, my understanding is all of this, the 10th Street situation would improve. I mean, the traffic getting up to Franklin is still the traffic on Franklin, but
Sure,
but the 10th
sure.
Street. So yes, the point of this is really more to show we can account for all of the things that are happening almost entirely with signal timing. And then we can actually get to an even better state of affairs with that left turn lane. That doesn't mean we will still try for the traffic light, and we'll get to the traffic light here in a couple of slides. Commissioner Costello, did you have a question?
I do, yes. So I understand, in a traditional development, the developer is going to study the impact of the increased, density, number of units on nearby roads. But I think this development is a little bit unique because you're actually essentially, Reed Street isn't becoming officially a road. It's still going to be an alley, but it's getting straightened out and it's going to be treated as if it were a road. And so I think it would be really helpful, and it sounds to me like folks in the comments might agree, if we just knew what the traffic impacts might be with that addition as part of this development during the school, pickup time period in the afternoon. It sounds like you've kind of accounted for it already in the morning rush hour. But I'm envisioning a situation where you've got all of these charter schools on the other side of the bridge, and they're all cutting through the development, through alleys, whatever, to, get to wherever they need to be. And if I were living in that neighborhood, I might want to know what kind of problems to anticipate. I just think it might be helpful.
So,
the other question,
Will, can you?
Yeah. So
I had one
do you
more
have
question.
the trip gen?
Can I plant my other question and then we can come back to it? The other question real quick was just where Reed Street meets Franklin. I understand the, right in, right out and the flex post. That sounds fine. So what purpose would the light serve is my question. Would it just be to stop cars on Franklin so people can turn right out of there more easily, or would it be a different option?
No, the flex posts are at the flex posts are at the 10th Street. We were talking about the 10th Street alley and Franklin, not Reed and Franklin. And so if there were a light, you wouldn't have flex posts at Reed and Franklin. Right. We're otherwise we would also have them there. But all of this is really, I don't think there's a huge amount of leftbound traffic coming out of Reed Street northbound into Franklin. It's really the 10th Street alley. So Will, it sounds like Colleen wants the 3 p.m. multifamily trip gen coming out of our development. So how many trips going in all directions?
Yep. Yeah, so we can break it out. There's published rates that basically you can convert from the peak hour to lesser hours. If I could just say the one thing is that even if the traffic were to be slightly higher from school traffic during those periods for some movements, we're still analyzing the biggest possible impact that our development could have because it generates the most trips during that peak hour between 4 to 7. So we would just be studying a smaller number of trips during the school peak hour, which would have a lesser impact. So, a smaller delta than we're studying in our study. So just to lay that out there, while there may be different things going on, we've studied the biggest potential impact of the site.
Yeah, and I mean, I would just add, I mean, when you look at the difference in trips, I mean, there's the morning peak hour is much worse empirically than anything that's happening in the afternoon. But we'll do a slide on 3 p.m. and
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my point, because if you look at the morning rush hour, that also coincides with school drop-offs. The afternoon peak hour that you studied only starts at 4 p.m., so it's after school pickup, so it doesn't include that traffic. And frankly, I think if you were to study it, you'd probably see similar volume levels, maybe still slightly lower than the morning, but I think they'd still be pretty high. So anyway, I just wanted to flag it.
So respectfully, you don't have the commuters at the same time. So just to be clear, the multifamily, it's easy for us to say these are the trips our building will generate between 3 and 4 p.m. We did not study, we didn't get traffic counts between 3 and so we can't speak to the background conditions. What we can do is we can say, we have this many fewer trips. That's easy. Are you saying you want us to go, because going back out to study 10th Street would be a much bigger deal?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was your question? You're asking if I think that you guys should go back out and study it, or do you think it's not necessary because the school traffic would still be less than what you
No, I mean,
would
I
expect
think
to
the school.
see?
No. My question was, if the question is, what traffic will be generated by our development in non-peak hours, we can circulate that. Is that the question? That's an easy thing for us to circulate.
Yeah, no, it's not development generated traffic, but when you straighten out Reed Street and make it easier for people to cut through that way, I think the question may be for residents, and, if there are residents on the call who disagree, feel free to speak up, or you can agree if you want to too. But my question would be, school traffic is going to have easier access through the neighborhood with the straightening of Reed Street. And so I think the question for residents may be, what is that going to mean for them? So that's all. That was what I was getting at.
So, but right now, all this traffic would be going through 10th Street. Right, so we're sending all of this traffic, the only access westbound Franklin, the only access left turn from 10th to Franklin is through 10th Street. So as of right now, everything's going through 10th Street. So we're overloading the 10th Street, sending, because there's no other way of accessing westbound Franklin.
Yeah, in the afternoon, I think we're talking potentially about a lot of traffic coming in the opposite direction. So they'd be heading eastbound on Franklin, away from the 5 or so charter schools on the other side of Franklin, on the other side of the railroad tracks. So they'd be heading eastbound on Franklin in theory.
Right.
So it would be a different movement.
In which case, the existing right-in from Franklin to Reed would still allow them to access Reed and go southbound towards either Rhode Island or Evarts and then south.
Right.
Either way, that functionality is either there with right in, right out, or it's not there with right in, right out, and everything's going through 10th Street. So if we're adding a full motion intersection there, then we're releasing that pressure off of 10th Street at least, and it'd be the same configuration for compared to right in, right out.
Understood, Andre. All right. I mean, I know you live there, so if that's something you've already considered and you don't see it as a problem for you guys, then that's fine.
I think overall what this traffic study is showing, that the traffic situation is increasingly worse, getting increasingly worse in the neighborhood, right? So that there's no other way to look at it. And you know, we live in a very busy kind of spot. So the question is, what can we do to minimize the impact on the community here and on the existing network? And the answers, unfortunately, are kind of, in my mind, are kind of limited from what I see.
So
Hello.
let's.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
yes,
sir.
Mr. Merriweather, we can hear you.
All right. My name is David Merriweather. I've been a resident of this neighborhood for 4 years. And you guys are building and building, and you're interrupting. You're disturbing our tranquility in this neighborhood. And I don't know what's going on. This is the first that I've heard of anything happening. We haven't been notified of any construction or anything going on. We don't have a say.
Apologies for any confusion. We have not started construction and we're not causing any disruption yet. This is about a project that would start construction, we hope, sometime next year. And if you put your email address in the chat, we can send you a link, or Jake, you can put a link to the zoning docket for Mr. Merriweather. Or you can also ask Commissioner Amin for more information about the development generally. And we're happy to answer more general questions about the development. I do want to stay focused on traffic for the.
I understand what you want to stay focused on, sir. But I'm a resident of this neighborhood, right? Been here. And no one has asked me anything about a redevelopment. No one has said anything. Now, I've never heard of somebody coming into the neighborhood and you don't send a survey out to the residents of the neighborhood as to what they want. It looks like you guys are just coming over and taking over our neighborhood. You don't give a damn about the people who have been here for many years, who love this neighborhood. And we're seeing it change. We're seeing you guys pushing us out. That's the same thing they did to the Black community when they redlined the Black community, when they sent highways through the Black community, tearing the houses, everything down. This has been done before. And you guys are coming here doing the same thing. You were displacing us.
So, sir, respectfully, we are not knocking down any housing whatsoever. We're knocking down only single-story industrial buildings. So we're not displacing any existing housing at all. And as
That's
part
not the
of
point,
our,
sir. That's not the point. You're missing the whole point. That is not the point. We, as residents of this neighborhood, should have a say. If you're just putting a parking sign up in the neighborhood, we are the residents. We should have a say. Those that have been here for many years, those who own houses here, I don't care what's going on. We should be notified. We are completely left out in the dark. And that's not the way you do business. That's not fair. That's not fair to us or any of the old times. We got a lot of senior citizens in this neighborhood. These senior citizens don't need a whole bunch of traffic coming through their street. You talking about traffic. These senior citizens don't need any traffic rerouted around their street for a development that we didn't ask for.
So with respect to notice, we sent notices to the 200 footers, and that was what was required. We've done an SMD meeting, multiple meetings with the BNCA. We held several meetings with the immediate community, and we're doing a couple of traffic meetings this month. This month we also did an ANC special meeting. and the project was discussed at the ANC meeting, and there was another SMD meeting this month. So I'm
okay. So
I'm
I know about your meetings. Your meetings are channeled to a certain people. Everybody doesn't get those emails that you guys sent out. That's why we have not been sent out any emails, because we don't get them. You send them to certain people in the neighborhood that agree. I haven't received any emails from you. None.
You're absolutely right. We generally have informed the ANC SMD, Commissioner Amin, the former head of the BNCA, and then a couple of 200 footers who have helped provide notice to other 200 footers. And today, my associate flyered the neighborhood with the goal of making sure that more people were able to join the meeting. The current alignment of Reed Street is materially worse than the one that we're suggesting. We're trying to create, in the process of development, a better traffic grid, but we are definitely adding housing units. And I very much hear your concern. It is core to our development that we would add 700 housing units in 2 phases to this section of Reed Street, first south of Evarts and then between Evarts and Franklin. A lot of those people are going to use public transportation, but they'll absolutely have an impact on the immediate neighborhood. We've tried to reach out to the community. I'm apologetic. It's certainly not the case that we wish to overlook you. We are holding another meeting after this one on June 15th at 6 p.m. with DDOT. You're more than welcome to join that meeting. And I believe that there will be another SMD meeting on this project this month, where we will represent the project top to bottom. And that SMD meeting is intended to be in person. And I believe it'll be hosted by Commissioner Amin. I don't know what the location is or what the date will be. If you put your if you give us your email address, we can make or your address, we can make sure you receive notices of future meetings. And I apologize that you didn't receive notice before.
Sir, you still don't get it. We should have been on the ground floor of anything happening in this neighborhood. Not extra meetings that are coming up. Not where you've discussed your things before or what you want to do. All right, that's just between you and developers and billionaires that want to come in here and build. We as residents should have been on the very ground floor. Don't you think so?
So, sir, I think we did a good job of trying to reach out to the community. I understand your feeling that we didn't get to the whole community, but the 200 footers were on the ground floor.
You're double talking, sir. You're double talking. Yeah, I mean, I can miss a bill. I can tell the people, oh, I certainly sent the bill out to you. I'm sorry you missed it. We're sorry we missed it. That doesn't mean anything. All right? To tell me you sorry that we didn't get it, how you going to be sorry? All of a sudden you're going to be sorry, but you didn't think about including the residents on the ground floor. I mean, that's something that you can't apologize for that. That's not a sorry thing. That's not a sorry
respectfully,
thing.
We did involve the 200 footers.
That you were wrong. That you were wrong for starting this project without discussing it with the people that have been in this residence, have been residents in this neighborhood for many, many, many years. And for you not to contact these people is a travesty.
So,
that
sir,
shows that shows that you do not want out there. You don't care. you're going to come into our neighborhood. You're going to do what you want to do in our neighborhood because you have those resources, and we're just middle class people, and we don't have the lawyers or the money to fight you, and you guys know that. So you come in just like they built this big apartment building over here. We didn't have a say on that. They came right in the neighborhood and started building this great big apartment. Now you have people that are on 10th Street, when they look out their window, they're looking at an apartment building. They had no say over this.
Okay, so let me make a couple of comments, and then, sir, I need to give the floor back to the traffic issues,
I know
and
you.
your
Yeah. I know you do. I know you do.
can
I know you
can
do.
I so let me
I know.
let me
You
let me
don't have to do anything because I'm making too much sense to you. So you got to go off on another tangent situation, and say, well, yeah, he might be probably right in the back of your mind, but we don't give a damn. This is a money maker for us. Look how much money we can make off of this project.
Mr. Merriweather, with all due respect, we involved the 200 footers from the very beginning. We involved the leader of the BNCA from the very beginning, and we involved the SMD from the very beginning. The project was heavily negotiated. We lost a floor of a building. We pulled part of a building back from the community. The community benefits package was heavily negotiated. I am
I
very
wasn't in on that,
sorry.
sir. I wasn't in on that.
And I think that's a fair statement.
My neighbor wasn't in on that. The neighbor next to him wasn't in on that. The neighbor on the other side of me wasn't in on that. All the way down the whole block. None of the neighbors who is a street, 10th Street, you keep mentioning 10th Street, that is definitely going to be affected.
And where
is
sir,
your
where are you on
address?
10th Street?
Where am I? I'm 2636 10th Street.
Okay, so that's outside of the 200-foot
I'm
radius.
right behind that alleyway.
So that's outside of the 200-foot radius. So you're not a 200-footer.
So you eliminate me because I'm not a 200-footer. I've been in this neighborhood for years. So this is a regulation. This is something, this 200-footer. This is like redlining. This is another thing that you guys are putting into
that's
this.
the law.
It's
the city law. It's the city law, sir. We didn't come up
with redlining. It's redlining. Redlining was the city law also. It's redlining.
Mr. Merriweather, just so you know, that the person speaking is Andre. He lives on the 2700 block of 10th Street. Sir, there's going to be an SMD meeting in person. And
so why is he in on this? Why is he in on this?
Because the 200, he's amongst the two.
Get the information? Huh?
He was a 200 footer.
He's not a 200 footer.
He is a 200 footer actually.
How is he a 200 footer? When I'm right behind the apartment building.
He's within 200 feet of building 2A. And as you noted, there's a new apartment building between you and the project. That new apartment building was built by right. We were not involved at all in that apartment building. Although the best of my knowledge, it was built legally. It was by right. This project is a PUD, does require community input. We will flyer for the SMD meeting so that you can attend that. I am concerned. So I am not at all interested in cutting you off. At the SMD meeting, we will do a top to bottom discussion of the whole project. The main focus of a lot of residents' concerns who we've been engaging with is traffic. And this meeting was scheduled specifically to address the traffic concerns. It sounds like you have higher level concerns with the development, just whether there should be additional development. I mean, I'll tell you, if not this, the owners of the property will build something else. But obviously, I am the developer here. I am seeking community support. We would love to have your support. And I will be, the next SMD meeting will be in person. We'll stay as late as we need to address all of the questions. You can talk to me in front of the crowd. You can talk to me individually. We can take you through the project. What I can't do on this call this evening is go top to bottom through the whole project with you. I can apologize. I mean, I am sorry that you did not receive notice. We were trying.
No, I don't want to hear that. I don't want. No, don't apologize. I don't want to hear apology. Don't even apologize. Okay. Because it didn't have to happen. It shouldn't have happened. So don't apologize for something that should have happened that you had control over. There's no apology needed for that. Because you messed up. In other words, I could use the F word, but you messed up. You messed us up. You're talking traffic. You're talking traffic on 10th Street, but you say I'm not a 200-footer. But you're talking about disrupting traffic in front of my house. All right, you're talking about that. But I'm not a 200-footer, so you don't have anything to say about this. You're not a 200-footer, but we're coming into your neighborhood on 10th Street. All right, it might be a problem with traffic on your neighborhood, but you don't have a say in that because you're not a 200-footer.
You absolutely have a say. You have a say.
All right.
You should attend the SMD meeting. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to finish our presentation, and then if you have additional questions,
I'm going to let you finish your presentation. You go on with your presentation.
Please stay on the line and ask questions.
The thing is that we don't have a lawyer. See, I can come to the meeting and I can say what I want to say, and you guys have your lawyers there. You have all your people there. We don't have a lawyer. So it's hard for us to make any changes because your lawyers are going to say this and they're going to say that, they're going to say that, and they're going to say, look, dumb little boy, get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay? You guys have us hogtied. You have us hogtied.
Sir,
no, that's all right. No, that's all right. I see my neighbor up the street from. He's the 47 block. He's the white guy that lives up there. But the white guy is on the phone, but there's no African Americans or black people on this call. You made sure
that's
that the white
true.
guy.
That's not true. Sir,
made sure
that is not true.
Knew.
There are black constituents on this call as well, so don't mischaracterize. I understand you have grievances and you have a fair point, but do not say that black people are not on this call because we are here.
Black people are not involved. If there's some black people on this phone, y'all should realize.
We're also involved. We also are involved, but we also
should realize that you don't have much say in this uniform. I mean, in this plan. You know,
I disagree. So here's what I would like to propose. Here's what I would like to propose. I think this conversation should be carried on, but I think that perhaps we should maybe route this conversation through Ra. And you can certainly participate in the next single district meeting. Okay, then you don't have. Then if you don't want to participate in that, sir, then what else can we do for you?
Do they have a lawyer? Do these black people have a lawyer? Black people have a lawyer.
We're part of the conversations, and you can.
Do these black people have a lawyer?
Conversation if you're willing to make it a two-way conversation. There are plenty of lawyers
that are involved
on the resident side, sir. There are several lawyers.
Do these black people have a lawyer? The black people that are on this line, they should be ashamed of themselves that the other people were not notified of this. These black people that are on this phone, they should be ashamed of themselves. All right, for not letting the whole know what's going on.
Mr.
I'm not stupid.
Mr. Merriweather, can I speak for a moment? Mr. Merriweather.
You got a few open arms on the phone. Yeah, black people. But you don't have the black people that want to stand up and fight. You don't have the black people that are coming on here with a lawyer. You're coming on here agreeing with what's going on. I mean, I don't understand why you guys don't.
Mr. Merriweather,
that's all right. No. You finish.
Can you please not insult anybody?
You finish talking to the white people in your Uncle Tom's or you got on the phone. All right. And y'all go ahead and talk and work this out and do, all right, what you're going to do. I'm not stupid. I'm going to tell y'all right now, I am stupid. I'm 77 years old. I've been in this town for many a year, right? I saw him take my grandfather's house on 10th Street Northwest, a black neighborhood where every house was paid for and torn down to build a school. So y'all can't be telling me this crazy stuff. All right, this and that, this. We don't have a chance unless we get some positive black people who don't want to sit down and just listen, right? That don't want to talk about the correct issues that need to be solved. All right. This is where we are at. I'm gonna let y'all go. All right. I voiced my opinion. All right. And I'm gonna do everything I can possible. All right. You don't have to go into my bank account to get a lawyer. I'm gonna do everything possible to see that this project does not interrupt my lifestyle. I'm getting old. I'm 77. Does not interrupt my lifestyle. The way that I want to end my life in peace and quiet. All right. What you guys, say the hell with you. The hell with you, black old man. The hell with you.
So, Mr. Merriweather,
all right, this is the progressive group that's coming into the neighborhood. We want to do everything possible. We can't buy your home. We're gonna make it so uncomfortable for you in this neighborhood that you're going to want to move out of the neighborhood. And if people can't see that, they are blind. They're ignorant.
So here's Mr. Merriweather. I'm not going to mute any individuals on this call because I view this as a public space. So I'm not going to do that. I would ask you, sir, please. We've spent 20 minutes. You've voiced your opinion. I have a presentation that I know a bunch of people in the community want to hear. If you would like to stay on the phone, I understand you don't want to hear it. I understand that you don't want to hear it. I would ask that you stay on the line. Please stay on the line. Listen to our presentation. And then if you'd like to re-engage, let's re-engage at the end of the presentation. Just let us finish the presentation. And then we'll re-engage, and I'll continue to try and address your concerns. There is a hand raised. I'm going to move Commissioner.
It's impossible to address my concerns. So the movement is on. The movement is on. It's been on for quite some time. And if these people can't understand what's happening, right? I don't know what's wrong with it. They're ignorant. I mean, this is redlining. This is building roads where they tore the African American neighborhoods up. They built roads, freeways to get them out of it. They wanted to build a freeway right here, but they fought it.
Mr. Merriweather, I'm asking you, please, other members of the community would like us to finish the presentation. Please, sir, let us finish the presentation, and then please stay on the line. Erwin, can we go to the next slide?
I'm getting ready to hang up. I want everybody on this line to look at a documentary called Driving While Black. Get it. It's been on PBS. Look at it. It'll explain to you everything that's happening in our neighborhoods. Driving While Black. Okay? Check it out. Get educated. Okay? See y'all. Bye.
Commissioner Higgins, you had your hand up, and Andre, you have your hand up.
No, I'm not going to ask my question at this time. I'll wait.
Commissioner Higgins, I'm not trying to stifle anybody. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you're more than welcome to. If you'd like to reserve it, we'll stay on until all the questions are answered. Why don't let's keep going with the presentation. I think we can come back to 10th and Franklin. It's obviously a source of concern for a lot of members of the community. I think the short version of 10th and Franklin is making the 10th Street alley right in, right out will add congestion, and our development will add less congestion than that, but also congestion. Signal timing largely can mitigate those concerns. The addition of a left turn lane actually creates a condition northbound on 10th and Franklin that is better than the current condition. Let's move on. None of this accounts for the light. We want to present the light. Erwin, let's go to the next slide and keep going.
So the next slide is consistent with our presentation related to 10th and Franklin. And obviously, in order to get to 10th and Franklin, you have to go through 10th and Evarts. There are two components that contribute to the traffic heading eastbound on Evarts. It's the rerouting of the cut-through traffic from the alley and our trips. And if you can see from the yellow and green rows, that combination of 46 trips are essentially being added to that intersection. That intersection operates at pretty good levels of service because there is no signal. As part of our traffic calming plan that is comprehensive, this will address some of the comments that have been raised in the chat. There have been comments about traffic speeding along 10th Street. There are no stops for any locations along 10th Street. So at this location of 10th and Evarts, we're actually recommending that we implement some new crosswalks. We implement some curb extensions, and we implement the ability to make this intersection an always stop. This facilitates the activity along 10th Street. This facilitates crossings at this location, especially serving the school. So we believe that that making this intersection an always stop has a overall beneficial impact. John asked, will those be raised crosswalks? And I need to double check the
no,
plan.
they not at 10th and Evarts.
So not at 10th and Evarts, but they are always stop. 10th and Evarts does provide north-south continuity, but by making it an always stop, we present a location that requires all the vehicles at that intersection to come to complete stop. The next slide is essentially looking at Franklin and Reed Street. So at the intersection of Franklin and Reed.
Erwin, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Could I ask a quick question just about 10th and Evarts real quick before you move on?
Okay.
It's just, my question is, has Hanover reached out to anyone with DDOT's Safe Routes to School team to see whether either raised crosswalks or a raised intersection at 10th and Evarts would be feasible? So it sounds like, given the proximity to the school and all of the traffic, it might be wise to try and push for something like that while all of this development is going on and all of these road changes are happening. So I don't know if you've reached out to anyone from there.
So as part of the CTR review, the Safe Routes to School team will be involved in providing some of their comments. We're currently with DDOT, so they will be taking a look at that. Additionally, we've worked on multiple public and private schools in the district, so we do have connections and contacts at the Safe Routes to School office within the district. What we have done to help facilitate those crossings is to create some curb extensions and bump outs so that the crossings are minimized to minimize the distance that any pedestrian and students would need to cross going across 10th Street. So we've tried to facilitate those crossings as best as we can. And then relative to Franklin and Reed Street, the current plan is to make it right in, right out. And with this intersection, what currently happens is that there are some lefts that take place, but we are restricting all left turns under our current proposal to have right turn in and right turn out to help facilitate some of the safer pedestrian crossings along the intersections along Franklin. And then, Will, next slide. At the alley, as we mentioned before, there are a significant number of vehicles coming through the 10th Street alley and turning left. In a future condition, we're requiring that all vehicles into and out of the 10th Street alley are right in, right out. As a result, the delays at that intersection are also improved. And then next slide. Understanding that there are some constraints at the intersection of Franklin and 10th, we revisited the opportunity to create a signalized intersection at the new Franklin and Reed Street intersection. What we struggled with before when we initially looked at this intersection was that if you look on the north side of Franklin Street, there is a driveway that currently serves the property on the north side of Franklin Street. What we had initially thought was that in order to accommodate that driveway and the access associated with that, the stop bar on the westbound approach would have to be east of that intersection. In looking at the redevelopment plans associated with that development, the developer, who is Douglas Development, has actually identified that driveway not as a full driveway, but as an inbound driveway only. So with that finding, we are able to narrow this intersection such that we can create enough spacing between this intersection and the 10th Street intersection. Previously,
I should just let me just say one thing. We have not spoken to Douglas Development about this plan. We think that this plan works. We're going to present this plan to Douglas Development on Friday. And we do think that this working probably to some degree requires their support. So I just wanted to caveat, we were just made aware of their development by their outpricing a package for a self-storage facility. I can't, to the best of our knowledge, it's by right, and we don't have a ton of detail on it. So we'll probably learn more about it on Friday, but I don't think it's what I think people in the community were expecting, apartments or condos. I understand it to be a self-storage facility. So sorry, Erwin, to interject. I just wanted to make it clear we don't have a deal with Douglas or anything like that yet.
And so in that respect, you know, when we look at this intersection, because we're able to tighten it up, that allows us to create more separation between this intersection and the intersection of Franklin and 10th. If we were unable to tighten this intersection up, the signalized intersection gets too close to the intersection to the east. As a result, we're in a situation where we're able to create stop bars, no turn on red for either the eastbound or the northbound approach. And we believe that this can be a potentially workable solution to the issues where a lot of the impact that we've identified at Franklin and 10th Street would be assigned to this intersection instead. So this intersection would allow, currently the vehicles that are using the 10th Street alley can now use this connection. Our vehicles that are looking to use Franklin Street to get west can use this intersection. So essentially the ability to redirect a lot of the traffic that we're heading east to get to Franklin and Ebarts and 10th and Evarts and 10th and Franklin, we're able to create a signalized intersection at this location, which also satisfies the new pending bill before the council that identified that within the schools, there's within the area of the watershed of schools, there should be an always stop or a signalized intersection. So this would satisfy that condition as well. So
did you guys I'm sorry, this is Michael. Did you guys have the traffic counts for this intersection with the light? Was that on another slide?
With the volumes, the estimates? Is that what you're asking?
Exactly. Yeah, and like the wait times and how far traffic is backed up, or
we don't have a projection, so this would be a bonus. Everything would be. Oh, do you mean a projection for this? We have not studied the impact of the light, except that it would make everything. It would make all of the 10th Street traffic better, but we don't have numbers for it.
Okay. Are you guys planning to do that if you propose this, or?
Well, we would need to.
We'll have to.
We would need to present that to DDOT so that they would allow for this condition to take place.
Okay. And just in terms of process, would that be done by the June 15th meeting, or is this going to be proposed at the June 15th? And if they are okay with it, then you run the numbers.
Well, no, we would do it. We're not sure that DDOT, because DDOT would need to circulate this within their traffic signals group, see if they and so that coordination internally at DDOT may not take place by June 15th. But in preparation for that, we, Grove Slade, would be doing all the analysis to support it so that we can get it in for DDOT review as quickly as possible. Okay,
and you'll circulate it, I guess, to the neighborhood as when you send it over to DDOT, or is it? I'm just trying to think of
anything that we submit to DDOT is essentially public record.
Yeah.
So in preparing the documentation to support news traffic signal, it does two things. One, it creates an intersection that's acceptable to allow for movements onto and off of Franklin Street. And in addition to that, it helps mitigate the conditions along 10th Street, where we're seeing the amount of traffic that's being diverted to 10th Street.
Erwin, let me jump in for just a second. Can we, between now and the 15th, model the impact of this traffic light on all of the intersections?
Well, yes, we would need to present that to DDOT. So absolutely, but absolutely.
Okay.
2 weeks. Yeah, we can do that in 2 weeks. Well, we can do a little less than that, but yes.
We'll do that before the meeting on 6/15, and we will circulate it to Nicole, Andre, Dan, and Commissioner Amin. If somebody else on this call would like to be on that circulation list, please put your email into the chat if you're not getting emails. So we will do that, and then we will present the numbers in the meeting on 6/15, which we flyered. So we'll present this. So yeah, we'll obviously ask Commissioner Amin to forward to the ANC. I mean, we don't have the ability to forward to the whole ANC, but it will get all posted to the docket, certainly. And Mike, we'll specifically send to you as well. So Jake, if you can make a note of that. So we'll present it. Yes, and we can send to all of the commissioners when we circulate. So it will get posted to the docket, it will be circulated to the commissioners, and we will present it in the meeting on 6/15. Okay.
And then the following slides are.
I'm sorry, I have a question about just some questions about the light. Can I just ask while we're on the slide, or are you still talking about the light on the following slides?
Go ahead, John.
I guess one question is, I'm not suggesting you do this, I'm just trying to clarify. I've seen a bunch of pedestrians dart across the Franklin Street at that intersection. I see that there are no crosswalks there. So your plan is would not have crosswalks, I guess, given all the turning and stuff that you're trying to accommodate there?
This intersection would, oh, you mean across Franklin?
Right.
So across Franklin, we're not identifying any crosswalks across Franklin. The reason for it is because if you notice, it would start conflicting with that curb cut on the north side of Franklin Street that was problematic for us.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not suggesting you do it. It's something to think about just because I've seen people almost get killed there trying to cross. Not children, by the way.
So John, I actually not doing crosswalks here was is sort of an interesting innovation that makes it safer. We can't speak to people who are jaywalking, but the visibility here was imperfect because it's a road entering a bridge, and the people most visible are the people crossing east to west on Reed. If you had crosswalks, and you had somebody sort of coming up for green, not having crosswalks makes this safer.
Okay, I can see that. I mean, you don't need to convince me on that. I just wanted to ask about it. The other one question I have is, it looks like you're going to put lights on both sides of the street, which I guess you need to do to facilitate the turn in and turn out westbound. Is that? I guess that's right.
Obligated to, although
the manual, there's national manual that identifies the necessary equipment needed, and that's required for redundancy.
So
yeah, because I was going to say that there's a similar, I put this in the chat earlier. And you may just want to make a note of it for your conversation with DDOT if you don't know about it, or there's a very similar condition on H Street. If you head westbound on H Street, right behind Union Station, on the downslope of the H Street Bridge, there's like a legacy parking lot there. I think they did it a little differently there, and it's a little different situation. But to me, I was going to raise that on this call. It's an existence proof that this kind of thing does exist elsewhere in the city. And I would like to think it'd be a good argument with DDOT. Maybe they say it's grandfathered in or something, but it definitely has been there and working for a long time.
Yeah. The fact that the driveway on the northbound side is inbound as opposed to outbound really facilitates the ability for us to make this a workable alternative.
So just to be clear,
go ahead, Dan. Yep.
Yeah. So two things. First off, from a safety perspective, 4 poles is apparently sort of your best case. These poles are going to conflict with the bridge foundations, so we have to sort of figure out. This is surprisingly complicated, but the goal is to make this work and then to get DDOT to sign off on it. This configuration, if Douglas Development doesn't push back on what obviously to become, I mean, they had a full motion driveway and it's going to become a single motion driveway. I mean, it's right in only now. If they don't push back, we think that there is a reasonable chance DDOT would actually support this in this configuration. I mean, it addresses a bunch of things that we weren't sure could be addressed. So there may be a little bit of luck here. Sorry, Commissioner Costello, did you want to ask something?
I did, yeah, thanks. I think at a previous meeting, we had sort of gotten into a conversation about pedestrian and cyclist sight lines. And I don't know if it was Irwin or somebody else, but somebody had noted that the sight lines weren't great to see cyclists and oncoming pedestrians, especially kids. And so I wanted to know what the plan is to address that. For instance, are there other barriers that can be installed that are clear or see through?
So in this condition,
I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me finish.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
That's it. I finished. I think we overlapped a little bit, but yeah, I wanted to finish my question. Thank you.
I apologize. So relative to your previous concerns when this was a stop controlled intersection, there was questions about vehicles kind of inching up into the crosswalk in order to find the gaps in order to turn right, because at the time the presentation identified the ability to turn right in and right out. With the new signal and the fact that we've identified both the eastbound approach as well as the northbound approach as no turn on red, this guarantees that for the most part, the vehicles would stop at the stop bar and would only proceed when the eastbound and the westbound Franklin Street traffic is stopped with the signal. So the signal allows for better sight lines for both the pedestrians and the vehicles.
Okay, that makes sense in theory, and I thank you for pointing that out. We all know that drivers take lights and signs and pavement markings as suggestions, not the rule. So are you also proposing to include, for instance, some kind of automated enforcement for drivers who decide to turn right on red despite the warning not to?
We can request a red light camera here. We'll add that to the list of things that we're requesting. I don't have any. I mean, the goal would be to make this work. So, Will and Erwin, can we just add a request for a red light camera at this intersection?
Yes, we can include that with the other coordination that we're doing with DDOT.
Great, thank you. Last like kind of pragmatic question is just with respect to whatever the new development might be that's going on the north side of Franklin. If vehicles can only get in from Franklin, how would they get out? If that's going to be a storage facility, are they exiting that facility onto Girard or 10th Street, or what's their egress?
Yeah, it's the other side. I don't know the name of the road, but their main entrance is actually on the other side. So I think this is a secondary entrance. It is Girard. Okay, thank you, Julia. So the reason that we don't think that this conversation on Friday, we think it'll be friendly, is this is proposed to be a one-way in entrance, and then they are intending to have, it appears from the plans we've seen, a full movement entrance on the other side. So we actually think that this potentially just works for them. If they don't agree with this alignment, obviously, then the conversation with DDOT would be more complicated. I think we continue to believe that an intersection, like an offset intersection that includes both entrances, proximity, the complication of single timing, the delays, it would just be the safety. I mean, that's just a very hard intersection to get approved. If Douglas Development doesn't oppose this, we think we have a shot. If we can get a signal approved and it's a safe condition and it works for everybody, we, Hanover, would prefer this to any other result. It just, everything will work better. So that's where we stand on this. We have to talk to DDOT about it. DDOT will have to evaluate it. We'll see where the conversation goes. We'll also see how our conversation goes with Douglas. But I'm at the very least optimistic. Let's go quickly through the mitigation that we had otherwise planned. And then we can open the floor up to questions, come back to different exhibits.
Yes. Okay. Dave, do you want me to go through this, or do you want to go through the same?
Yeah, but Erwin, just because I think a lot of people have seen all of this, why don't we do the rest of the slides in, let's say, 5 to 7 minutes? Anybody, if you think we're going too quickly, please raise a hand or speak up, or we'll come back to any of these slides. But I think a lot of members of the community have. Mr. Wentworth, go ahead. You took your hand down, Mr. Wentworth. Did you want to ask a question? Here, I can. Do you want me to unmute? I can't unmute you. You'd have to unmute yourself.
No, it was a mistake.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna lower your hand. Okay, Erwin, let's roll through these and then we'll come back and address questions.
Yes, this is the same plan that we have presented in previous community and ANC meetings. Just a quick synopsis of a quick summary of the proposed traffic calming plan. So just south of EVARTS, across from the first phase of our project, we're identifying a raised crosswalk, which is within that green box. Next slide, Dan. Next slide, Will. At the intersection of the Reed Street and EVARTS, we're identifying this intersection as a four-way intersection. And the southbound approach, there is proposed to be a raised crosswalk, so that if you're coming from Franklin south to EVARTS, you're coming to a full stop where you're met by a raised crosswalk. Next slide. And at the intersection of at Franklin and Reed, we've identified this as right turn in, right turn out. Obviously, this changes if we get the signal, but what's currently proposed is right turn in, right turn out, and bollards across the Franklin Street center line to prevent any left turns either in or out. Next slide.
I think they're. Oh, I see. Okay, my slides are lagging a little bit.
Oh.
So just give it a second. Okay, but sorry, keep going.
The next slide is at the intersection of 10th and EVARTS. As I mentioned before, along 10th Street, there are no locations to stop. So you essentially flow freely from Rhode Island Avenue all the way up to Franklin. At this intersection, we've identified the potential for making it an all-way stop. What we're also doing is that we're extending the curbs out such that it will enable for pedestrians to cross 10th Street across a shorter distance. The fact that we're making it an all-way stop also creates a better situation for pedestrians to cross at this location. Next slide.
Erwin, can we stay on that one for 1 second? A lot of community members had questions on why we can't make those crosswalks raised there.
Well, so 10th Street, east of the train tracks, there aren't a lot of options to get from 10th essentially all the way up to, I guess, Michigan. So 10th provides a great north-south ability for vehicles to get through. I think this is a plan that we've identified to help mitigate that crossing condition. If it turns out that DDOT wants us to put a raised crosswalk in, I believe we can definitely consider it.
So let me. I think Jake's point is a good one. Can we go back to that intersection for a second? Yeah. So Hanover does not have objections to raised crosswalks at this intersection. I think that it will create potentially additional traffic issues on 10th Street, but we don't have any objection to raised crosswalks at this intersection. That's fine. Well, so maybe at the end of this call, I had been intending to just sort of poll informally some of the participants to get a sense of what some community members think at the end of this call. We can poll on this issue. We don't object to it. I just think what we were doing is we were doing the bump outs, and we were doing the bump outs, and so the bump outs also make the sidewalk the crosswalks shorter. So it's easier to get across, but we're not. If we would be fine with this. To Erwin's point, DDOT might not be, but again, these are proposals that we can absolutely make. So and so anyway, I just wanted to be clear. we don't oppose this. I just think there is another side to that suggestion in terms of impact. So okay, let's go on to 10th Street Alley and Frank.
Real quick comment. Keep in mind that there are 2 speed bumps along 10th Street between Evarts and Franklin already, right? So if you're doing this a raised one, you either need to get rid of one of those 2, I guess, or if in case you keep all 3, then it's just a bumpy ride.
I just wanted to add that, in a previous call, you guys had suggested that students coming from the other side of the tracks would walk down Reed and then down Evarts to get to school. I'm not convinced, by the way, that that's what people will always do. But if that theory is correct, there really ought to be at least one raised crosswalk for kids to get, a safe route, to continue the very last, 25 feet of that journey.
That's fine. Let's take a sort of informal community poll, and if that's the preference, we'll do that. I think we don't object. We're not on the other side of that issue at all. So, sorry, somebody else. Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question, and maybe just for next time with DDOT. So if you guys were propose that meeting with Douglas goes well, it seems like there might be more traffic on Reed and Evarts as well as the Franklin and Reed. Would you consider perhaps raised crosswalks at Reed and Evarts in addition to that one going southbound, one going north?
We can't. Here's why. We wanted to make it a raised intersection, not a raised crosswalk. The issue is that the southeast corner is private property. So the southeast corner, if hey Jake, can you pull up?
If you walk over there right now, there's construction fencing up, and
yeah, I live.
It's not in public space. That's all that property owner's private space at that corner.
So I guess the question. Sorry, it's Priya. I was just gonna say, does that mean? I understand it's property owner, but like if that property owner is agreeable, there's nothing then keeping us from working with DDOT on that, correct? I mean, obviously the property owner has to agree, but assuming that they are on board, and since there's no sidewalks there and it's already kind of a dangerous space, I think the hope would be that they'd be on board.
That property owner is, so first off, Colleen, just real quick, we are proposing the crosswalk north of the intersection be raised. That property owner has had some conflict with the community. I don't think that there's a viable conversation there, but if others would like to reach out to the owner of, I think it's 2607, then we would have no objection. We would make the whole intersection raised, but I don't think that property owner is going to give up the corner. I don't think that's a likely result here.
And just one note to add on to that, we are building this with the curb extension here that is basically nothing's going to be planted where an ADA ramp would go. So when this development does ultimately come in, their crosswalks, they could put ADA ramps in there to then complete the crossings across all legs. So we're teeing it up for when they come through.
Okay, makes sense. And then any thought about, so if that's not possible, I understand. Yeah, there's no sidewalk there, and I guess it's not proposed unless they allow it on their property. Would extending the textured crosswalk into the intersection, would that be possible?
So an early conversation with DDOT has suggested that when we meet with them on 6/15, they're going to push back on the textured paving, even where we've suggested it. I pushed back on it as a reasonable measure because of the farmer. Mike, I'm open to the conversation on that, but I think that if we expand the ask, we're even less likely to get it. And I don't know what Erwin and Will would say, but they were against it. They were against it.
Have they shared any explanation as to why or what their concerns were?
Well, you can ask them on the 15th because we've allowed them the opportunity to explain themselves on the 15th.
Oh yeah, no. We'll definitely be there on the 15th. I just didn't know if they'd given any heads up of like if it was a permeable pavement pit thing, if it was a slowing down cars thing. I didn't know if they had indicated at all where their concerns were coming from.
No, but I'll tell you what I did get out of the conversation. There was general caution that we were asking for a lot. There was a general caution that DDOT doesn't want non-standard conditions in right-of-ways. And they weren't defending any particular position so much as more generally stating, you've proposed a bunch of non-standard conditions. We did say that we would take, Hanover would enter into a maintenance covenant if that would resolve any of the issues. But I think we may find that in the first meeting with DDOT, it becomes clear we're not going to get, and this is something that Erwin has cautioned me about sort of consistently, that we may need to be prepared to prioritize these things. But I'm happy to push for more. That intersection, we would have proposed again. I just want to say raised intersection. That would have been really easy. It's the southeast corner. The owner of 2607 Reed, I think there were issues in the development of the Rowan. I don't believe that owner has a particularly close relationship with the community. I don't know. I wasn't involved. I just don't think that owner is, we can always have the conversation. I don't think we can. My guess is we will not be able to do much more in that intersection than what we're suggesting until that property redevelops, at which point, if that owner needs something from the city, I think that it would be, I think it's incredibly important for the commissioners to be on the June 15th call. And I think if, I think we absolutely need ANC support. I have to tell you, if we as the developer go to DDOT and say, we're doing all of these things because we think they're good for the community, DDOT will spend a few minutes laughing, and that'll really be the end of that. I think if the justification for these measures is community safety, members of the community and community leadership needs to be on the June 15th call and needs to advocate. I do not think if it's just me, we're and Erwin and Will and Jake, that this is going to be the plan. I don't think so. So please, everybody should come and should advocate. Erwin, let's finish this presentation and then go back to questions at a high level. I think we were at were we at the alley mouth?
We are now.
Yes. So at this intersection, at the intersection of the alley and Franklin Street, we've identified extending the bollards across to prevent any lefts in or lefts out. And it would be right in, right out at that location. And then keep on going, Will. Next slide. And then in the alley itself, in the 10th Street alley, we have identified proposed speed bump as well as alley textured paving within the alley that's identified in that lavender color. And I believe that's it.
The bollard, that's the last thing.
Oh, and the bollard to
protect the corner.
Yes.
That's a mud pit. That's a mud pit today. So.
Can I raise just a reaction to these slides? So, because this is something we've talked about quite a bit back in December, January. I continue to be concerned about the interface between the north end of that alley, north-south alley, and Franklin Street, with lots of kids traversing. I do think that the median thing, the median bollards will help a little bit. I do think that if the Franklin and Reed intersection has traffic signal, that will help a lot. Obviously, you're not going to put a signal at the end of the alley. We had talked about two mitigations, which I think are in the CBA as under, if DDOT agrees. One was to put a speed bump at the north end of the alley, And that was because you can't put a continuous sidewalk because an alley effectively is a continuous sidewalk, the way that it meets the grade of the sidewalk. So we had sort of agreed on putting a speed bump at the north end of the alley to get people to slow down before they run over kids turning right onto Franklin Street. And the other was pedestrian flasher lights, which I saw in your plan in the, I think, I'm not sure it was the CTR, or I think it was the CTR. You have them indicated for the Reed and Franklin intersection, but not the alley intersection. So my request is, I know you think that DDOT is going to push back on things and not agree to everything. I think it's our job to try to convince them, you know, as community that this is important. There's 6 schools. It's not a standard condition. There's not many streets that have 6 schools literally like a block away. And I would like to see both of those mitigations on the plan of record that you submit to DDOT. I think if you don't put them on the plan, it's like you don't ask, you don't get. They're just going to ignore it. It's just going to be, you know, a line of text in the CBA, and it's never going to materialize. So we've already agreed to it, I think. So why not put it on the plan to submit to DDOT?
Okay, let's just to be sure. I'm just going to pull up the CBA, John. I'm not sure. So the second speed bump, the problem with the second speed bump, my concern was always DDOT was unlikely to say yes to any speed bumps. If we ask for 2, we might get 0. Let's ask for 1. So I think, you know, I don't know, Erwin, what are your thoughts on a speed bump at the alley mouth? Maybe it replaces the proposed speed bump. Maybe that you just do 1 speed bump, but it's there instead.
Can someone drop the most recent CBA link into the chat?
I can, that's interesting.
So when we look at relative speeds in the alley, the areas where the speeds are the highest are essentially in the middle, call it the middle third of the alley, because you're hitting a point where this alley goes only 1 block. So as that vehicle is approaching,
yeah, but kids are not going to be crossing the middle third of the alley. The kids are crossing the end of the alley. That was why we had this discussion. I'm surprised we're going backwards, because I thought you guys would agree to that. You agreed to putting PED flasher lights at the end of the alley. If it was up to me, by the way, the real solution to this is to put a post at the end of the alley and close off the alley and just have the trash trucks back down, like they do in half the alleys in Capitol Hill. But if we're not going to do that, I think this is what we had sort of agreed on.
So John, okay. So what I can do on the CBA, I don't think I can put it in the chat. I don't. So so I'm just going to email you the most recent copy of the CBA. And if there are others who feel that they're missing it, the CBA from January would not have, I think, the edits John may be looking for. I'm not sure. So I thought we agreed to do flashers at Reed and Franklin, not at the alley mouth. And I thought we were, so I'm looking at the CBA myself to understand.
And that's what we had in the
February.
In the CTR, we had just at the Reed and Franklin that we would work with DDOT to see if there was something acceptable that they would allow to happen there.
No, yeah, right. That's right. There was language. Look, guys, I remember, because I've been focused on this alley for 6 months and had many more objections to many more things, and peeled it all the way back to, could we have these 2 things to protect small humans crossing that alley? And I thought we had agreement on it. I remember seeing it in a red line on a version.
You're correct. So so we have, if DDOT determines that additional signage or signaling technology is warranted at the intersection of Reed Street Alley and Franklin Street, or at the intersection of the north-south alley and Franklin Street, the applicant will install the warranted signage and signals. So this was not in our sort of like the applicant shall propose. This was in the, if DDOT determines it's warranted. And then it's also the 2 speed bumps. If DDOT determines that 2 speed bumps are warranted on the north-south alley between Evart Street and Franklin Street, the applicant will install both speed bumps during phase 2. You know, I mean, I don't oppose 2 speed bumps. If the community wants us to show 2 speed bumps, we'll just show 2 speed bumps. Did we ever settle on what the John, weren't you gonna propose a specific signaling technology?
Yeah, I thought I had sent you some things. I can send you some, resend them if I didn't send them, I'll send them. I think there's a whole bunch of options.
So yeah, so you're right about what the CBA says. So Erwin and Will, we've got to show a second. So I mean, granted, it's not on our proposals list, but let's just show the second speed bump, and let's show signaling technology, and then let's see what John proposes. And I think, so my understanding, John, is DC doesn't have a standardized pedestrian sort of signaling technology. We had talked about like what they do in some places where like there are lights on the ground and those light up.
Yeah,
There's
right.
like a huge maintenance issue, and those things apparently like never work. So then maybe we talked about a
I think there's a whole range of options, and like someone said in the chat, I would start strong with DDOT. I'm happy to do this part of the talking. You can turn it, but and then we can work back. I would like to. What I would say to DDOT is this is a good opportunity to prototype some safety stuff. You've got a cooperative developer. You've got community that really cares. You've got a lot of schools. You've got a huge safety issue right there, and it's going to be on them if a kid gets hit by a car coming out of that alley. So, you know, I think, you know, I would say we should push them to do something a little more state of the art. Not that doesn't necessarily mean expensive, by the way. I don't think any of this stuff is like in the terms of the budgets you guys are thinking of is out of the realm of reasonable, and try to get that. But I'll try to send some things around. I can copy the ANC commissioners on it too, and if you know, if people have feedback, we can try to center on a concept or two.
So the second speed bump.
Sorry, I was just gonna, before you jump in, Doug, or Dan, I was just gonna say, echoing obviously everything that John just said, I'm also wondering, and I apologize if this was already covered, I was trying to multitask and do bedtime, but on the June 15th meeting with DDOT, do you have a list of folks that were invited / has anyone specifically from the Vision Zero engineering team been included? I think to double down on John's point, if we really want to use this as an area for them to try some of the most latest and I think stuff that has been proven scientifically to work from the pedestrian safety side, Vision Zero is going to, Linda Bailey and her team are going to be the ones that really oversee that, and so would love to have their eyes on this and be part of that conversation as well.
Yeah, so we only invited planning staff because they usually do the community meetings. Erwin, can we just ask for somebody from the Vision Zero team to join the meeting, and if they're willing to, let's have them. So
yeah,
that's
if it's helpful, I can also forward you some of the Vision Zero folks, including Linda and some of her engineers, have been working with our community for the last, I don't know, 8 months now. So there are some folks that are pretty familiar with this area and some of the unique issues that we have. So it might be easiest to get them in the fold since they won't be starting from zero.
So why don't we do this? Erwin will reach in sort of through the path that developers normally use, which is through DDOT planning staff. And then Preeta, I mean, just reach out to Vision Zero, tell them when we're having the meeting, tell them to reach out to Aaron and Kelsey on the planning team. And that, you know, members of the community would like them to be present. We're more the merrier. So I think that. Sorry?
Oh, I just said sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So we will show a second speed bump. I have mixed thoughts. I mean, 2 speed bumps on the alley, I don't object to at all. A speed bump right at the alley mouth, I think probably has pros and cons, but let's just do it. It's fine. John, if you want.
The speed bump in the north, I believe we got rid of because we killed the left turn from the alley, right? So that essentially removes pretty much half, if not more, of the AM traffic that was going through that alley.
Yeah, no, Andre, I don't think that's right. I think this discussion that we had, that we made its way to the CBA, coincided at the same time when all that other stuff was going on. So I agree that there'll be less traffic turning left, and hopefully
there won't be any traffic turning left.
I mean, I'm saying there'll be less traffic because no one will be turning left as long as those median bollards don't get run over.
Yeah.
However, there will be people turning right, and there's going to be a new garage full of 40 cars there or whatever. I think I want to stand. I don't think you should. I think you should keep the. I don't see what's the downside of a speed bump. Why not ask for it?
So I think this is what we'll do. I think Joshua is probably right. If we do the speed bump, let's do it behind the sidewalk, rather than sort of mid sidewalk.
Yeah, we would want to create some separation between the pedestrian path, because if you have, what happens is if you have a speed bump right at the edge of the pedestrian path, what will happen is vehicles will want to climb on there and end up rolling into the sidewalk. And so
yeah, that's good. This was just to rewind. This was because we had this conversation of, well, why don't you have a continuous sidewalk there, sort of a raised sidewalk? And you guys made the point you can't do that because the DDOT's going to require the grade of the alley to be the same as the.
It is at the alley. It is at the alley. It's a continuous sidewalk.
Yeah, across the face of the alley is continuous sidewalk.
Yes, the alley and the sidewalk are at the same grade, right?
Yep.
So the point is there's no grade change between the alley and the sidewalk. And that was the point of the speed bump. If you think there's a better way to do it, to move it back a few feet or whatever, I think that's fine. Use your judgment on that.
So we'll put a speed bump between the sidewalk and the loading dock. So let's just do that. And then, John, why don't send us whatever your preferred signaling option is, and I don't think we're objecting. I mean, if somebody can hit a button and there's a blinking light on a sign or something like that, I mean, it's fine. We're not. You're right about what we put in the CBA in the February draft, and B, we really don't object. So I think that's fine. Let's do that. Let's really quickly, because I would just like a few more people to weigh in on this, specific to the intersection of Evarts and 10th. Given that there are already speed bumps on 10th Street, is there a desire for a raised crosswalk at the intersection? And if members of the community could just say, yes, raised crosswalk, no raised crosswalk, I just an informal poll in the chat, I think it would be helpful. The downside to the raised crosswalk is you just have three bumps as you sort of go north. Yeah, driver inconvenience, exactly. I'm seeing a lot of yeses. I'm not seeing any no's. Okay, so I think my proposal would be maybe we make one leg raised, the one across 10th Street on the north side, which is already going to be the shortest. Does anybody object to that as a solution? Is we make one leg raised, the north side of okay. I'm seeing
the new crossing. The new crossing is what we're talking about, right?
Is the new crossing the north leg of Evarts and 10th?
Yes.
Yeah, 10th. Yeah, 10th Street. Yeah, the north leg of 10th Street.
Okay, so Andre is saying
I'm not sure we can get one of the existing speed bumps removed. There were studies done to get that speed bump installed for DDOT to remove a speed bump. It's something that DDOT would be probably hesitant to do.
Okay, so I think there's general consensus. We're going to propose a raised sidewalk on the north leg of Evarts and 10th. We're going to add that to the CBA. So that's a new thing we're going to add.
Irene was trying to ask a question.
Dan?
Yes.
Dan, I hate to be so ignorant here, but I'm sorry. Can you go back to slide 11 and explain to me in layman's terms, just simplistically, what does a raised sidewalk look like? Go back to 11, slide 11. No, oh, no. The 10th, no, it's a, I wrote it down, I thought.
Oh, what a raised crosswalk is?
Yeah,
hang on one
So
second.
essentially, a raised crosswalk, if you can imagine a speed bump, but the speed bump is wide enough that it's the width of a normal crosswalk. So it functions as it serves two purposes. One, it provides a raised crossing, and two, there's a grade change. So it's essentially a speed bump at a crosswalk combined. That's what a raised crosswalk is.
So Irene, if you look
I lost the note that I had about, I'm at 900 Evart Street, 900 block of Evart Street, and I feel like we're getting the short end of the stick. Anyway, and by the way, I've been here long enough. I'm like Mr. Merriweather. I've been here a long time, and I had to call the ambulance for a kid that got hit on his bike going through that alley, going toward 10th Street. He was on Evarts. He crossed that little alley there, and he's all right. But all they did was to put up a stop, the speed sign. That's all. Anyway, I understand what you're saying about community safety, and that's our business. That's what we should be doing. So I thank you for what you were doing. But I was just trying to understand what's happening from Franklin going down 10th and then to Evarts, and I can't remember the slide.
Irene, if you look at what I'm sharing, this is what a raised crosswalk looks like.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a speed bump. Okay. All right. That's visually.
We're gonna put a bunch of these in. I think three of these. Okay, Will, do you want to go back to the presentation?
Yeah. All right. Where did I put it down?
Are you referring to this slide, Irene?
I think proposed calming. No, it wasn't 15. I don't remember it being 15. You were describing how you're coming off of Franklin, going down off of Franklin and going on to that alley 10th. And then down.
Here's the alley right here.
Okay. Evarts. Yeah. Okay. You're coming off of Franklin. And what turn do you make out of that alley onto Evarts? You're at 900 Evarts going toward 10th. Can you make the left after you go down the alley there?
If you're going down, if you're going towards Evarts, on the alley, you can make any turn onto Evarts. The only turns we're removing on the alley are at Franklin, where it's going to become right in, right out. You can see on the side of this image, on the right side, these flexible bollards will be in the median so that people will not physically be able to make lefts out of there, which is sort of the most dangerous movement. And was the reason for the cut through traffic, was people turning left there. We measured hundreds of people doing that a day.
Yeah, it's very dangerous on the street. Very dangerous.
Yeah, Irene, and also for us, it's, coming to Evarts, they're proposing a speed bump, like, the alley behind our house. So basically, right after that alley, there's going to be a speed bump, like where the alley, and so that should slow people coming down onto Evarts, where that's a dangerous one as well.
Okay. I just like to think of us as Capitol Hill. You don't speed on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, the goal of this is there are now alternative quicker routes for everybody that was using this as a cut through. So hopefully it's primarily residents on the alley now who respect your position and won't do that.
Okay. Thank you.
So, okay, so we're adding to our, so there's at least two things we've agreed to add. One is the red light camera as part of the traffic light, Will, right?
Yep, I got it.
And then the raised crosswalk on the northern leg, and then we're just sort of fixing consistency with the February proposal. So that's the speed bump and some sort of signaling technology at the mouth of the 10th Street alley. And okay, so another poll, which I think would be helpful, assuming, let's just say, regardless of whether we get the light, is there a desire for a left turn lane on 10th Street? Probably if we get the light, there's no need for it. But I think the left turn lane, I understand could be a little bit controversial. If you want a left turn lane, if you could put yes in the chat. If you don't want a left turn lane, if you could put no in the chat, I think it would be helpful just to understand. Okay.
I think it'd also be helpful if anyone lives in one of those houses that has that parking immediately in front of them and would be losing it. If you can identify that, that would be very helpful.
Absolutely, Jake. Absolutely there. I don't know whether Danae and Kristen are still on the line here, but that's their parking spaces there.
I'm trying to find, how do I respond here?
So, Christian, did you vote yes or no? You voted no. Joshua voted. This one is
I'm voting no.
No. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Irene.
Okay, so it seems like well, there's certainly no consensus.
Right.
So I think we're probably, without community consensus, not going to push the left turn lane. We are going to fight for a signal. We think the signal is good for, this is at Reed and Franklin. We think it's good for our development. We think it's good for the community. We think we're sort of lucky with what's working out with the development across the street. If that all works out, that's great. We on the left turn lane, we'll sort of defer. Yes. So without a left turn lane, a left turn light wouldn't do a ton, and there would be that's also an old intersection. That the light becomes a surprisingly large project, and I don't know that it adds much. We will do signal timing, just as couldn't we delay the?
We can't do a left turn arrow because it has to have a whole nother phase where the southbound approach doesn't get to go, and it ends up. We tested that, by the way, and it causes the intersection to actually break down.
So okay, we're not gonna just to be clear. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I just wanted to understand that. So you tested offering a left turn lane and it didn't work?
Yeah, with the left turn lane, it does help, because what happens there is the left turns get out of the through lane, So
And
the
you allow through
throughs,
traffic.
so that the throughs aren't stuck behind the lefts.
Right.
And so that helps decrease the average delay.
Okay.
But if we put in a green arrow, there's just not enough green time left to distribute to have another phase at the intersection. And we did
Okay.
also we tested the delay also, which is sort of called a leading or lagging phase. And that also, there just isn't enough green time available to do it.
So you couldn't do a shared left plus through light for northbound traffic on 10th Street, where either option, drivers could do either option for a certain amount of time, and then the left turn arrow changes, and it's just
that's
through
called a
traffic only?
leading. Yeah, that's called
Okay.
a leading phase, and we did test it. And it's just you have to strike a really tricky balance at this intersection because there's a lot of traffic on Franklin, and it kind of if we add like 1 second of green time to 10th Street, it can add 30 seconds of delay, if you will, to the Franklin traffic.
Okay,
So we got to be very careful to balance that out.
Okay, so here's how we are going to present this as the developer, and we invite the community to actively participate. We're not going to advocate for a left turn lane if we can get the light. If we can get the light, which we think is good for everybody, we think it's a win for everybody on the call, everybody in the community, not just the people who joined us this evening. If we ultimately can't get the light for whatever reason, maybe we'll return to the community to have some additional conversation about whether or not a left turn lane makes sense. Without the left turn, I would like to see the traffic moving to Reed and Franklin. Yeah, I mean that's the goal. So I think the question is just what do we do if DDOT says no to a light? Hopefully that doesn't happen. Even if we didn't do the left turn lane, remember, just with signal timing adjustments, even with the increased traffic, you can bring that delay back to pretty close to where it was, which is delayed. I mean, northbound traffic on 10th Street really is not perfect in the existing condition, as has been noted. If the neighborhood changes its mind on the left turn lane after further discussion, we'll take that on as part of our improvements. If that doesn't happen, that's fine too. Please feel free to continue that conversation. Okay, I think we're through our presentation. So, and we did a little bit of polling, which I think is helpful. Are there additional questions for us that have not been answered as part of this conversation?
Oh, go ahead, Irene.
Excuse me. And I know you were saying it's explicitly for us. The issue with safety, community, your building, and I don't know how that may impact you, because I think the question I have is for Rowan, that developer who's taken over, that's 901, building that fence, and there's a safety issue. Pedestrians cannot walk down the street to the Reed Street. They have to come out from the sidewalk and walk into the street. That's a safety issue. But I'll talk to my ANC person about that.
For the road, Irene, are you talking about the crosswalk that goes across?
No, she's
901.
not.
901.
It's the
Okay.
duck
All right.
building.
Yeah. So I just know
Adams Investment Company.
That's causing issues, and you all will be affected indirectly, I think, with the way that they're using that as a warehouse and blocking traffic. So folks who'll be going into your apartment buildings will have issues.
No, so I if at some point I said the community version, I mean, I think we're in it together. Our development
You're not in trouble. You're not in trouble. You're not in trouble.
No. I just want to, two of our buildings access the street through that intersection. So we want it to work. I think we are going to be talking to Adams Investment Company about in the process of doing some dry utility work on Reed Street. We're going to be asking them from their permission to do something. So while we're talking to it, we'll bring up the fence.
So you'll need that property to park your vehicles and to do things.
No, we're going to bury the power lines on Reed Street as part of our first phase project. We'd like to. For us to do that, for us to bury the power lines on Reed Street,
you gotta go
we need to give, well, they're fed from Reed Street. So they have to give us permission to bury the power lines on their property. If they don't, I don't know that it's complicated. Anyway, we'll be on the phone with them soon. I expect that we've sort of been going back and forth on a solution. We will talk to them about the fence. I don't know that we'll be able to do anything about it, but we'll mention the fence.
It's all right. It's a safety issue. And if somebody gets killed because they walked out in the street, we got them. That's okay. It's okay. We'll take care of that. That's not your problem. It's a community problem. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Yeah, we'll definitely bring it up. I don't want to. We don't have any sort of a special relationship with them, but we'll raise the issue, Julia. And
well, no, I think you have enough on your plate. That's just a side issue. So
okay,
they're parking, they're blocking pedestrian. So that's. I'll make the call.
Okay.
Dan, on the 15th, and maybe I just haven't attended one of these before with DDOT. Maybe the commissioners can help me as well. You're presenting? Are we just presenting our side? Are we voicing support for things? Like, do we get to say, hey, they put this in, we want more? What's the format?
Yeah, no. Okay. So the format is, this is just a meeting we agreed to as part of our community benefits agreement. We're going to make, Hanover, really, Erwin and Will, an initial presentation that'll probably look pretty similar to this, except that I think the base case in that presentation is going to be the traffic light, actually. And so this will be a little bit different because of that, but we're going to present it, and then at least two people, maybe more people from DDOT will be present. I would really appreciate, given that this was negotiated with the community to affirmatively express support for the plan. What I think we would then want in an ideal world is to ask DDOT for feedback and to have sort of direct engagement with their planning staff, and we'll sort of see how that conversation goes, what they're receptive to, what they're less receptive to. Hopefully they're just receptive to most of it. Mike, there was another part of your question, which is if we want other things, can we ask for them? Absolutely. I think there is some benefit in a unified voice, but it's intended to be a public forum, and everybody should ask for what they want to ask for. My only request to the community is people actively voice their support for what we've agreed upon here, because I think if it seems like there is a lack of consensus, we're much less likely to get any of the things we want, or lose some of them. So I think there's benefit in consensus, voice community support. I don't know, Erwin, how long will Aaron and Kelsey give us? Are they going to stay on with us from 6 to 10 or?
They probably would want to, if you think about our presentation tonight, it was 20, call it our presentation was 20 minutes, probably half hour, 45 minutes for questions is probably the extent that DDOT would want to be able to entertain questions. So, probably an hour and a half is kind of the time frame with which DDOT I think would be comfortable entertaining questions.
I think if there's desire for a community follow-up with DDOT, we can always get another DDOT meeting. I do want to, it's in my nature to lower expectations and then try to beat them. I think it would be good to just be thinking as a group about priorities, what the most important aspects of the proposals are. I think if we all go into it with the mindset that we're going to get everything that we're asking for, we're happy to pay for it. It's not an issue. We'll do this. We'll do everything we've agreed to. I just think it's very unlikely that DDOT will say yes to everything. I was surprised that they decided to make an issue of the farmers market paving. They didn't even, they didn't say no to, but they just spoke to the fact that green alleys, as they call them, pervious paver, concrete paver alley, is something that'll just be approved by a different department at permitting. So I think we just make the conversation as productive as we can. And then if we can have another conversation after that, if people think it would be helpful, that's fine. I think, Erwin, we need to send them something on the light before the meeting so that they can be prepared to speak to the light, I think. Otherwise, I think.
Yes.
Yes, well, we're going to have to do the additional analysis within the next week in order for them to be able to provide some level of review prior to that meeting.
And you guys feel like Kelsey and Aaron, are they the right people on the technical side to be kind of evaluating these questions? I feel like Aaron is more of a project manager, development manager, and Kelsey, I think she's more. What's her focus?
Well, she's involved in all of the public space elements, which 90%.
She's a planner.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's they have active involvement in all of these components. The technical support that they rely on from other divisions include the traffic operations division, and those guys typically don't go to these meetings. So they'll get referred as part of it, but they Kelsey and Aaron typically are the quarterbacks of this design review process.
So they would get the feedback and then be able to speak kind of with knowledge about everything we're being proposed.
Yeah, for as much as they can within the time frame that we're trying to provide them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the decision makers, I guess, to say yes or no.
Well, yeah, they are the ones that essentially issue the letter that goes to the zoning commission that says, we support this project with these conditions.
Okay.
I don't know who Delando Baker is, but anybody that the community feels should be invited from DDOT. We're not invite anybody from DDOT who you would like to, and if they attend, that's wonderful. The Ward 5 liaison, perfect, great. So you should be on the call if he's available. Okay, yeah, great. That's wonderful. Let's have them on. My understanding, Andre, for whatever this is worth, is without going to sort of senior DDOT leadership, Aaron is sort of the most senior person that developers interact with on a day-to-day basis, and that external traffic engineers interact with on a day-to-day basis. And he and Kelsey wield a lot of coordinating power within DDOT. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be possible for us to get on a call and have DDOT say, okay, we'll do this. Because there will be 4 or 5. I mean, for instance, this light, the bridge team will have to weigh in. A bunch of people will have to weigh in. But if Aaron is supportive, I mean that is the best thing that could happen on the call, I think. So.
Okay, so we're basically presenting what you guys are presenting to them conceptually, and they'll take it from there.
Yeah,
well,
I think there's, I think what the type of feedback we would get is, no, we are vehemently opposed to something.
Right.
We can get that type of feedback. In terms of their conceptual review, they'll say, that no, there's a fatal flaw here, and we will oppose this. Is probably about the best level of feedback that we can get at this meeting, if we're to set expectations for this meeting.
Okay.
Well, and the question is
as-
if they could possess that knowledge to identify these fatal flaws, right? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that would be. I think that's something that would be important, because if it's something that is higher in our priority list, then I think we'd want to know as soon as possible, right? So the community can then say, no, we want that speed bump, or we want X, Y, and Z.
That's right.
I think that they're going to. I was sort of surprised by their immediate responses to a couple of the things already. This was in the context of a phone call about negotiating. Remember, we're doing a big agreement with DDOT to build them a new road, essentially. So we were on a call just discussing that agreement, and they mentioned. I think they're going to say no to a bunch of things. But listen, would love if it doesn't work out that way. We were sort of warned that we were asking for a lot of non-standard items. Another one was we wanted to do, as part of the farmers market, removable screw bollards, and they're not excited about that. So anyway, sorry, Commissioner Picara, did you want to ask a question?
I was just gonna say, I think I'm the yin to your yang, because I'm on the flip side, where I tend to be a little more optimistic so far with an okay track record on that. But I would just say that things like, I expect that I didn't realize that their potential pushback on the pavers, for example, was that it would fall under Green Alley, which they're right, it is a whole separate team. And for things like that, I actually don't think that's a no. It's a go talk to those guys. And in having talked to the Green Alley folks, I know that the Green Alley folks are kind of the opposite way. They would like to replace all of these alleys with permeable pavement. And so frankly, what we are offering from the start, where they don't have to later on go down and pull up concrete and then repave it, which is a much more expensive cost. I think getting those folks in at the ground right now gives us a lot of leverage to say, hey, these are initiatives and priorities for the city, including Vision Zero, which we've had a horrible track record on. I'm actually cautiously optimistic that if we're coming together and laying out this very well thought out plan that has concrete measurables and what we're trying to fix, I'm cautiously optimistic that we as the community can push, and this community, certainly we know how to rally together and get DDOT to do stuff. I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to get them there.
I love it. And yes, they did not say no on the alley. It was really just, in that case, the planning staff was just deferring to another team. So we'll see. We'll see. But I love the cautious optimism. Any other?
If I could just offer, I was just gonna say, if I could offer just a little less cautious optimism, I think that there's a way to position this, and this is a sort of a political statement. I think DDOT's getting a lot of pressure to do a lot of things, and they haven't, delivered on a lot of. This is an opportunity for them to have a sort of prototype of what safety in the city can look like. And I think if it's pitched to them that way, the right levels, not just the staff levels here, but other levels, I think there could be some strong institutional incentives for them to want to do many, if not all, these things and put out a press release about it at the end.
I think we're probably less well positioned to deliver that message than the community, but I
agree. I agree. I get you. I'm just saying what I think.
No. So that's a great message, and we're supportive. So let's deliver that. Is there anybody on this call that doesn't have the meeting invitation details? Jake, I think you put it at the top of the chat for 6:15, 6 o'clock on June 15th.
Yes, and if anyone has trouble accessing the meeting, I also put my contact information. Just email me and I'll send you a new link.
Is it better for a lot of community residents to show up at this meeting, assuming they're generally supportive of the whole package of things that you guys have agreed to?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, Jake, do we have a limit? I mean, I assume we can have 100 people on our Teams things, right? Yes, I think it's great. I think everybody should join. I'm not, the more people, the better. I don't think we would have enough people to run into a technical difficulty, and that would be literally my only concern. So I think everybody who would like to join, I will say this, just because I've said it, if a lot of people join and we have a very clear lack of consensus, I'm not sure the conversation will be as effective, but that's totally up to the community. Everybody who would like to join is welcome. So, okay, we'll see everybody on June 15th. We're going to work with Commissioner Amin. There, I believe, will also be an in-person SMD meeting. I think in 2 weeks. I don't believe that date has been nailed down. He's picking the venue. We'll certainly be there. We'd like everybody from the community who's been a participant to come participate, continue the conversation. And then I believe the discussion will be had in the ANC's Committee of the Whole tomorrow night. I believe our PUD, alley closing and dedication, everything will be on the ANC's calendar for a vote this month, I hope. This is the ANC's last meeting before the hearing. We would like to have the ANC weigh in. We hope that the ANC will be supportive. So point of that is, I think that meeting is on June 22nd at 6:30 p.m. We'd like community to attend that. We've also, I'll just put it out there, we've been asking community letters to write, community members to write letters about the project to the zoning commission. We are not positive there will be an ANC vote on the project. We feel we've done a lot of engagement with the 200 footers, and we'd love to have letters of support. And of course, if people want to write letters that are not supportive, you're obviously welcome to do that as well. I believe instructions on how to send those letters into the zoning commission have been circulated, and we provided sort of a template, but you can send an email or anything else. I think more than anything else, community oriented, the zoning commission does care what the 200 footers think. And I do think that they weigh that in the calculus of everything else that they weigh in considering a PUD. And so I urge people to weigh in on the project, and I hope that I hope people are generally supportive. But feel free, even if you're writing a support letter, if you've got a concern, put it in the letter, and then we address it at the hearing. Our zoning commission hearing on this is on July 21st, I think. Jake, nod your head if I got that right. And I don't have access information on that, but we'll circulate it when we do. I assume it's on the I assume the zoning commission sends out a WebEx or something. So we'll circulate those details when we have them. Really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, engaging with us. We got a follow-up meeting in 2 weeks. I love the optimism. Everybody, please have a good evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.